Hello everyone, I'm currently Kevin, and in this video I will tell you all about Stelle's best build. Now, there are a couple of good Stelle builds. Stelle in general is just very good right now. Mainly the tool build, the balloon engine build, the start-stop build, or the Karakara aerial turret build. Now, this last one I want to talk about. It starts with Karakara aerial turret, but ideally you will switch into runabout as fast as you can. The Karakara aerial turret variant is pretty consistent, but you do really want to get both. So early on, you want to skip some shops in order to have enough money to reroll the good shops. You're basically only looking for medium items until you get the Karakara and the aerial turret. This means if you get a hour 1 Andy, you are skipping it. You want to take nodes that give you money or can give you medium items. The shops you are looking for are Ayla, which is the best shop for us, and also Mittel. These two shops have a very high chance of giving you both Karakara and aerial turret, or at least one of them. You want to make sure you always have enough money to reroll and buy both the Karakara and the aerial turret, so you're looking at keeping at least 10 to 12 gold for every shop encounter. Now, if you get a Mittel and an Ayla, and you don't get the Karakara aerial turret, you are trying to look for something like a Tethers and a free fall simulator, or a Molten Ball Blaster, which can both get you through the early game. If you find either the Karakara or the aerial turret, you're just trying to make the best of it until the next day where you can find the other piece. Sometimes you just get some bad shops. You get like an Andy, Midsworth, Curio, and Kina, at which point you literally cannot get the Karakara aerial turret. This can happen sometimes, most of the time you're fine. If you are only getting bad shops until the first monster, you should have taken a lot of the money nodes. So for the second half of the day, you should have enough money to buy some of the other items that can get you through day 1, while still having enough money to get the Karakara aerial turret. Now, if you do get the Karakara aerial turret, you want to look for a lot of the small items, since most of the medium items are no longer that useful. You want to look for stuff like Clockwork Disc, Joystick, Headset, Gyro Gun Sight. Clockwork Disc especially needs some explanation. The Clockwork Disc is a key piece because it allows you to put it next to the Karakara. So the Karakara will always hit the aerial turret, which allows you to use left or right-handed and put your aerial turret on that side. Otherwise, you have a 50-50 chance of not hitting the aerial turret, which is incredibly bad for your build. On screen are most of the support items you're gonna want to use. You do still want to visit medium shops and Ayla, because they can give you upgrades to either your turret or your Karakara. And Mittel can give you a toolbox, which is great for economy, but can also give you stuff like flare gun and other good tools. One of those great tools is actually Orbital Polisher, which for this build, you probably need to get it in the first couple of days. Like anything later than day 4, and you probably won't be able to finish it unless you get a Vortex Cannon. A quick side note for if you don't get the Karakara aerial turret and you are too deep into the other build, like the Molten Ball Blaster build or the Tethers build, you can still switch over to the runabout build, but it's going to be a little bit harder because you probably won't have all of the support items. You need to be able to get enough flying items in order to make the runabout worth running. If you go Molten Ball Blaster, it might just be better to go with the tool line, which is totally fine, but since the Molten Ball Blaster is pretty easy to run, and you probably have a lot of money left over, because if you get your tools and your Molten Ball Blaster, you don't really need anything else, you can still switch over to the runabout build. If you're in the start-stop build, you can also go over to Hang Glider and then go into runabout if you get it, because Hang Glider is one of the key pieces for runabout. Now that we've talked about the day 1 and 2, let's talk about day 3 to 6. You can still get a runabout at day 2, but you probably won't have the money for it, so it's not something to really consider. At day 3, however, you should have the money. This is one of the most important parts of this build, is to make sure you take enough nodes that give you gold or items, so that you always have enough to buy the runabout. From day 3 onwards, the best shop is going to be Ayla. Most of the other large shops like Midsworth or Barcoon are not actually going to give you the large item. So if you get an Ayla, you click the Ayla. If you see a large item before day 6, it is always guaranteed to be a runabout, because it's the only large silver weapon for Stelle. You're also trying to upgrade some of your items, especially the Gyro Gun Sight, maybe the headset, and your Karakara, which can help you defeat most of your opponents, but most of the time, once your aerial turret gets to 1 second, you are pretty much good to go. Most of the time, you're just looking for runabout at any opportunity you get. If you do get runabout, you can often switch over to it pretty easily because you have something like Angler, Grinder Drone, you have the Kara. You're trying to pick up different pieces already, so if you have an Ornithopter, that's amazing. A flare gun is also amazing. You probably have plenty items that make other items flying, or even like a clockwork disc, which can fly some of the time. Combine that with a headset, and you probably are at 1 second on the runabout, which is incredible for anything below day 6. Now, sometimes you will not be able to get a runabout, and to hedge for that, you want to pick up some of the other pieces, mostly for hang glider. So on screen, I'll show some of the items you want to pick up, but mostly it's just going to be pre-fall simulator, marshalling lights, and airplane glue. If you have 2 of those, you can make a hang glider build work, at least until you have a runabout, or just pivot completely. You are also trying to get a temple ticket most of the time. Most of the monsters that you'll fight will be, do they have a temple ticket? If yes, can I beat them? Then you should. Temple ticket is incredibly useful as long as you have one of your key pieces, specifically runabout, because it allows you to get 2 chances for obsidian. If you get obsidian on your runabout, you can go until day 16 without any problems. You will have enough damage. No single other enchantment will ever be as good as obsidian for the runabout build. Now, you will not always go to the temple, because if you do not have a runabout, then there is really not a lot of reason to go to the temple, because you need to be finding runabout. If you have a good build without runabout, you can try and go to the temple to keep the obsidian enchantment, and then put it on the runabout as soon as you get one. If you think you can beat your day 9 opponent with your current build and you don't have runabout, you can go to the temple to save up the obsidian enchantment from the temple and give it to the runabout as soon as you get it. Otherwise, don't go to the temple. You need that whole entire day to look for your key pieces. Now, at day 6 plus is where things start to get interesting. Hopefully you have a runabout by now. If not, then you really want to start looking for any sort of good item. Mostly looking for gold larges. Gold items only show up at day 6 plus now, but they do have an increased chance of showing up. The key runabout enablers, if you do have runabout, are launch tower, vortex cannon, and hang glider. Now, of these items, vortex cannon is definitely the easiest to use. You just fill your board with small items, doesn't even matter what they are, and there you go, you have a 1 second private runabout. However, it also makes the opponent's board fly, which can be bad if you're going against a Stelle or you are relying on slows. Like I said before, it does help you to finish the orbital polishers quest, so it's actually quite useful, and it actually does a decent amount of damage. My preferred runabout enabler is actually hang glider, which gives more damage to the runabout instead of doing damage itself, but it does require you to have something like an ornithopter in order to get the hang glider flying, or to reduce your runabout cooldown by 1. Otherwise, you have a 2 second runabout, which is only half as good as a 1 second runabout, obviously. The hang glider does have a cooldown of 5 seconds, which is slightly worse than the vortex cannon, but since you pretty much need a ornithopter anyway, you will be able to get it to 4 seconds regardless. The last one is going to be launch tower, which makes all your vehicles flying at the start of combat. This is incredibly powerful because you can start doing damage at 1 second, but it does have a pretty big restriction that means you need a lot of vehicles, and most of the vehicles are not really that useful. You're also using something like lightning butterfly, which is totally fine, but there are a lot of small support items that are much better than any vehicle you can find. Now, in order to get the most of this, you also need the ornithopter, at which point hang glider is probably just better. Launch tower does give a good amount of damage and can definitely be used, so if you already have some vehicles, which you should probably be picking up for pivot options in the mid game, launch tower is a perfectly acceptable build that will get you to 10 wins. Now, some other items that I have used are Skyliner, which is actually very powerful since before the Skyliner goes off, you probably have like 4 or 5 items flying, even with your Kara build. So it slots in perfectly in this direction. However, it is pretty slow and it doesn't always do enough damage in the late game. So I tend to only use it if I can't find the runabout. Now, if you have a Skyliner, you can also pick up something like a Vortex Cannon that makes Skyliner so much easier to play. At which point you can then later find a runabout and go for the runabout build anyway. As I said before, Hang Glider is also one of those items that is just really good. If you just get a couple of key items, mostly gyro gun sight in order to do more damage, airplane glue, freefall simulator, and marshalling knights. Get a combination of those and you can probably get 10 wins with hang glider even without the runabout. Now here are some examples of some of the endgame builds so you can see what items you want to use. Now, most of the time it's going to be runabout with either hang glider or vortex cannon, so I'll be focusing mostly on that and explain a little bit more about how to get the most damage out of that build, since some people have some damage problems, and especially with a lot of pigs in the endgame, you are going to need a lot of damage before they get their combo off. Now, a big part of your damage is going to come from skills, but some of your damage is also going to be coming from items. Gyro gun sight is going to just give you some flat damage. Upgrades to the runabout is also going to give you flat damage, so those tend to take priority. But there is a very powerful combo in a specific item, namely the altimeter, which has an 8-second cooldown, but is reduced to 4 seconds and will charge adjacent items. If your adjacent items are flying, it will get that 4 seconds. So if you have something like a vortex cannon, at 4 seconds the vortex cannon is going to fire, make everything flying, which means the altimeter will immediately trigger, as well as the runabout will immediately trigger. So you will have a runabout shot, which is two attacks. Then the altimeter will fire, which will give the runabout another shot, at which point it will probably have recharged already and will get a third attack. This is 6 instances of damage, which can be incredibly powerful as an opener. And then you just have a 1-second runabout that will attack twice. Now, a lot of the time I can get a shiny altimeter. This is absolutely the item you want to get shiny. Altimeter also only needs to be silver, although if you have it in between a hang glider and a runabout, it is kind of useful to get a little bit of extra charge to let the hang glider fire again. But you can just keep it at silver, because a lot of times your orbital polisher is also going to be at silver, and you're not going to be having a golden or diamond orbital polisher. So you want to make sure you get the orbital polisher on the altimeter to give your runabout another attack. Now, for skills, you will get a guaranteed Uncle Odie, which is the best skill vendor for Stelle. You can get Expert Pilot, which means your vehicles deal 30 to 60% more damage, which is completely busted and so incredibly powerful, you basically have to pick it every single time. On top of that, you also have Above the Clouds, which will give you 48 or 72% crit chance, which is, again, just incredible for a skill. And lastly, you have Acclamation, which means your weapons will get 10 to 20 damage for each flying item, which is a free 60 to 120 damage, which again is just incredible for a single skill. You also have Eject, which can be incredible if you have enough damage, which means you are protected against one-shots, but it can kill your runabout, at which point you probably don't have any damage left. Now, you will get a guaranteed Uncle Odie at level 11, which is what you're aiming for to get your damage up. So before that, you just want to focus as much as you can on upgrading the runabout and getting the shiny altimeter and getting the gyro gun sight. These should be enough to do enough damage until day 10 or so, where you can get level 11 and get the guaranteed Uncle Odie. And you're basically only looking for these 3 skills because they increase your damage by so much, it's incredible. Another item that is also incredible is Lantern, which if you have Lantern, you don't need Above the Clouds. So you can skip Above the Clouds in order to get some more flat damage or percentage damage. Now, my ideal runabout board will look something like from right to left. An Ornithopter, then a hang glider, then a shiny altimeter, then a runabout, then a lantern, and a gyro gun sight, but that last slot can be filled with pretty much anything. For monsters, as I said before, you need to be looking for Temple Ticket, so any monster with a Temple Ticket is probably worth fighting. But if you don't have any of those monsters that you can fight, or you don't think you can beat them, there are some other options. Going for the Covetous Thief is very good because Shadowed Cloak is incredibly good because you can just put it next to the aerial turret and you will have a very, very quick aerial turret. This is probably the best item you can get from day 2, but Aetheryte does have a ticket and has rigged and has a large silver item, so I mean that's just incredibly good, especially if you can get a catalyst from somewhere, or you are at day 6 and you still do not have a runabout. You can also use the force field, if you still have it, to transform it and have a 1 in 3 chance to get the runabout from there. Product Demonstrator is one of the new monsters and can give you Ornithopter. The other items are not that good, so only take it if you don't get a ticket from somewhere, but Ornithopter is an incredible item. Any monster that can give you a large gold item, like a Hexa on day 4, can also be good, because if you are not super short on money and need to sell it, you can keep the gold item until day 6, where you can then transform it and have a pretty decent chance of getting one of the items that you want. Feeding Duelist can also be pretty good, because it gives you all talk, which gives you 30 flat damage, as long as you are above half health. And since we start very quickly with a runabout build, that can be incredibly good. Another one for the same day is Trashdown Mayor with augmented weaponry. He also has a ticket and a large item, large gold item specifically, which makes it a very good monster to fight. After that, there are just some generally good monsters that give you a ticket or give you a large gold item. Sergeant Sud giving a hammer, for example. But there's not really anything that you need to get here until day 8, where you have Cloud Top Officer, which can give you Bombing Run, which again gives you more damage for your runabout, which is incredible. You can also get Cosmic Rock with Cosmic Wind or Crit. Cosmic Wind gives one of your weapons damage when you haste, which if you have a headset, you will haste 6 times. But the best for day 8 is definitely Car Conductor, who has Expert Pilot, which is just such an incredible skill. You always want to try and get it. One Ring Shoal can also be incredible for Thick Hide, which means when you slow, you charge an item 1 second. If you get slow on your runabout, it will slow 2 items for 1 second, and it has multicast, so it will instead slow 4 items. That gives you 4 chances to charge your runabout again, which basically gives you an infinite for your runabout. So always keep that one in mind too. Cloud Top Admiral has a similar skill, which is when your items start flying, charge a weapon 1 second. You will have 2 weapons most of the time, since most of the time you're either going to be using Vortex or Hang Glider, but you will make 6 items flying, which means on average you will get 3 free runabout attacks. In that same vein, you have Trash Titan with Juggler, which again will be able to charge your runabout. It will be based on small items. You will not always have a ton of small items. Maybe you only have the Ornithopter and the Altimeter, which can give you more attacks faster, and that's exactly what you want. Lord of the Waste with Foreboding Winds, since you're almost always going to have a lot of crit with either Lantern or the skill. Lord Arkan with Flurry of Blows is again the same thing as all of the other charge skills. It can just charge your runabout for 1 second, which is all you need because it only has a 1 second cooldown. I think these are all of the monsters that I would consider super interesting. Again, you just want to look at the monsters. Do they have a ticket? Do they have a large gold item and I don't have my runabout enabler, or I don't have runabout yet? Then you take those and you try to transform it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and comment to say what you liked or disliked. I've also been streaming lately, so you can check that out. I'll put the link down in the description. It's mostly me just explaining my runs as I go through them. So if that's something that interests you, then go give it a follow. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.